Greater Than 0% is a 501c3 nonprofit that's on a mission to share stories of organizations from around the world that are changing lives. We have weekly episodes featuring amazing nonprofits and monthly episodes interviewing top business executives. You can find us at gtzp.org on your preferred streaming or social media platforms.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this episode 134. Today, we have Larry Jackson, who's the president and founder of Ben Jackson Foundation. Larry, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Joseph. Appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, so per usual, we like to get started by having our guests just share what the mission statement is. So what's the mission of Ben Jackson Foundation?
Sure. The mission of the Ben Jackson Foundation, we're all about reuniting military families. So what that means is we provide financial assistance to help young people in the military with their financial expenses when they're traveling home on leave to see their families and friends.
All right. And we'll get into it, but quick questions for you is why you? Why is this something that you're committing your time and passions towards?
Sure. So the backstory on this is that this is a cause that's very near and dear to my heart and my family's as well. So the Ben Jackson Foundation is named after my son. He served in the Air Force from 2016. He went to basic training to Texas, then went to Japan and was stationed in Japan, very far away from home. In fact, it was about a 14-hour time difference. So it was definitely hard to find time to actually talk to him when we were both awake and when we both weren't working and we could talk. So he felt a little isolated, I think, at first. One day he messaged me and said, "Hey, Dad, I would really love to come home and surprise the family. Could you help me out with a ticket?" That's when I first realized, not too surprisingly, that a ticket from Japan to Madison, Wisconsin, which is where we're near, is about $2,000. And for someone like Ben, who's just starting out in the military, that's about what they make in a month. So I was able to use some of my airline miles to help him with a ticket. So I got him a ticket from northern Japan through Tokyo, through Detroit, all the way back to Madison, Wisconsin. Actually, turns out I was on a work trip that week, and I was able to meet up with him in the Detroit airport, and I arranged the flight so we could be on the same flight back from Detroit to Madison.
Wow.
So we got home and surprised my wife, surprised my other kids, really everybody. I was the only person that knew about it. So in that week he was home, he saw so many different people, so many families, so many friends. We had a great visit. He went back to Japan after that, and about 6 weeks after getting back to Japan, he unfortunately was killed in an accident on base. And as devastating as that was, we were grateful that we had that time with him. We had a lot of people donating money to our family because we said, if you, instead of giving flowers, donate some money to the Ben Jackson Memorial Fund. We didn't really know what we were going to do with that. My youngest son said, "Ben got to come home. We should help other people like Ben do the same thing with this money." So that was the origin of it. We thought that was a perfect idea. We started out locally with a couple of Matthew's friends who were going into the Navy. And we said, hey, we want to help you whenever you're ready to come back home. We want to help you. We'll commit to $500 towards a plane ticket for you to come back from this money that people donated. And from there, it really just grew. We tried to find other people in Wisconsin that were going into the military in high school, out of high school, and do the same thing. So that was the origin story. And then we could talk about, how it's grown if you want. But that was the origins of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first off, I'm extremely sorry for your loss. I know we talked about this before, but it's amazing how you and your family have been able to turn this into something like this foundation. It's truly inspiring, and I don't think a lot of people know about that being a barrier of current military that are enlisted seeing their families. I feel like the assumption is, oh, well, the military could just pay for flights back home whenever they want because that's a perk of the military, or an assumption. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. Yeah.
No, that is something a lot of people do think. And to some extent, there are options there, but they're just extremely limited options. So Ben could have, in theory, gotten a military flight from Japan that goes to Seattle that goes once a day.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is that just basically dumps him off in Seattle, and then he has to get home to Wisconsin. So trying to buy a plane ticket when you have an unpredictable flight on the front end there is very difficult, if not impossible. So it sounds good, but it's really not a practical thing. And that's probably the thing that we hear the most, right? Is most people think that the military will pay for that.
Yeah.
But they don't. If they're sending you somewhere, if they're telling you to go somewhere, they'll pay for you to get there. But if you just want to come home on leave and take a vacation, you're on your own.
Yep. So y'all were founded in 2017. Is that roughly the time frame?
2018.
2018.
So Ben died in April of 2018, and then we had our 501c3 designation by the end of the year.
Well. Since 2018, how has the organization developed and evolved over the past few years now?
Well, it's really been a tale of almost two halves. There was a bit of a turning point in May of 2021. So prior to that point, we were really focused on people in high school going into the military from Wisconsin. And we treated this a little bit like a scholarship, saying, a scholarship, you go to school, you complete your first semester, you get decent grades, then you get the money. We treated this the same way to say, we're not going to give you a check now, but when you're through basic training, you're through your school, you get to where you're going, then when you're ready to come back, then we'll help you and give you that money then. What we found was we had a difficult time finding people in high school that could kind of see far enough into the future to say, I'm really going to need this at some point, and then apply. So for, I'll say, the first 3 years of our existence, 2.5, 3 years of our existence, we really had more money and more donations than we had people to help.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a good problem to have, but we knew that there was this tremendous need out there. We just couldn't prove it. And honestly, I think we had a hard time convincing people that were going into the military that they will need this.
Right.
And it would be worth their while. So we knew the need was out there. At some point we said, we need to change what we're doing because we know of this need. How do we impact more people? Right. So we reached out to a few connections that we had at a couple of different Air Force bases and said, hey, if you know 10 people that would benefit from this, send them our way. We put together an email, send it to them. Here's some information. Here's how they can apply online.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, okay, we could easily do 20. That's no problem. What happened in the space of about a few weeks is that email got forwarded around the globe, probably a few times.
Oh my God.
So we had gone from saying yes to everyone that applied up until that point, which was, I think, a total of about, let's say, 75. Mm-hmm. Starting in May, really May 10th, we started getting about 100 applications every single day. We ended up with over 2,000 applications in May of 2021 because people that were living the situation, they were in the military, they were far away from their families. They're like, oh, this is available. There's nothing like this. Yeah. So we just started getting flooded with applications. So we went from saying yes to every single person to now, how do we cope with 2,000 applications and figure out who we can say yes to? Because we certainly couldn't say yes to 2,000.
Yeah.
So that is when everything really turned. And then we had to implement a process whereby we reviewed the applications, we made our selections, we had to figure out how many we could realistically do on a monthly basis, et cetera. So fast forward to today. Today we're every month if and when we hit 300 applications in a month, we turn off the pipe. Basically, we shut it down for the month. And then we'll go from there. And then usually anywhere from say 10 to let's say 10 to 18 per month right now is what we can do. And that just really depends on our fundraising.
Yeah. Yeah. And how much do you usually put towards a individual's ticket? Is it a percentage of the overall cost, or is it just a dollar amount, or how does that work?
It's just a dollar amount. So we don't buy the ticket for them. We don't take into account their cost. We just say, if you're traveling domestically, we're going to give you $500 towards your expenses.
Yep.
Many times that covers the cost of the ticket. And then, of course, there's incidental travel expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't. For international travel, it's $1,000, and that almost never covers the ticket.
Right.
But it's a big help.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you trying to do one time, like if you serve one person, could they reapply, or do you try to get everyone at least once before even considering that?
we have so many people that we have to say no to. Yeah, we just you get one shot. You can apply multiple times. We have some people that have applied as many as 8 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can apply multiple times. But we haven't right now. I think. Last I ran the numbers, I think we could say yes to maybe 4 to 5% of the people that applied. So we're a long ways away from saying yes to everyone. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've interviewed a few veteran and military focused nonprofits before. They're more so in the mental health space, kind of post after they're done serving in the military. And understandably, there are a lot of organizations trying to help with the mental stresses associated with serving in the military. This sounds like it's I'm again assuming that one of the challenges of being in the military is like missing home and missing your friends and family, and that itself could put a strain on just your overall mental health. So have you heard any stories of how people coming back who were not able to travel back and how that's impacted them, like as a person? I'd love to hear some of the stories.
Yeah, we really have a lot of stories. So if you think about it, you put yourself in the position of someone that's just going in the military. Say you're 18 years old. You've been around your family and friends from wherever you live all your life, and next thing you know, you're amongst people that you've never met before, somewhere across the country, and ultimately you might end up somewhere across the world. So like Ben showed up in Japan, didn't know a single person.
Yeah.
So you take somebody and you just basically uproot them from their support structure that they've grown up with and been able to rely on in many cases their whole life, and now put them in a strange and stressful environment where they're disoriented. Everything's different. They're still adjusting to the military. And yeah, they just, a lot of times they need to get back to that support structure, if even for a week or so.
Yeah.
And they can get time. In many cases, they just can't get they don't have the financial resources to afford the ticket. A lot of Ben's friends told him that they were jealous that he got to go home because they just couldn't afford to do that. Yeah. As far as stories go, I mean, there's really, really so many. And we do hear that mental health is a concern, and just the stress of being in that environment and the toll that it takes, and being able to come back and kind of reset yourself and remind you that you have that structure.
Right.
A couple of, I'll say a couple of stories which I think probably indirectly contribute to someone's mental health. The 2 stories that always stick out in my mind is one, we had a Marine station in Okinawa. He had this in his back pocket for quite some time and was planning to use it over Christmas. The following year, then his grandfather went into hospice care, and he came back to Wisconsin and was able to visit his father or grandfather in hospice care. And we got to meet him while he was back here.
Yeah.
And he told us, if I hadn't had this ticket home award available to use, I wouldn't have been able to come back and see my grandfather before he died.
Yeah.
So that was a really impactful thing for us, that, just to know that he was able to make some memories and have that chance to say goodbye to his grandfather that he wouldn't have been able to have without people supporting us as an organization so we could help him out. Then the other really story that sticks with me is there was someone that she grew up in the Philippines. She came to the United States specifically to enlist in the Air Force. So she came to the U.S., enlisted in the Air Force, and then was stationed here in the U.S. And she had not been able to see her family, husband, and children for 4 years.
Jeez.
So we were able to help her out with a ticket so she could go back home and surprise her family and see her kids and her husband. So, I mean, here's someone that really just wanted to give her children a better life. And for her, the best way to do that was come to the U.S. and join the military. Yeah. So, stories like that just really remind us that we're impacting, real human beings, that it really does make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Shifting towards the actual fundraising process. And I mentioned this, I think, in our intro call. I feel like this is a huge opportunity for folks like United and American and Southwest and all the international and local airline providers to help and even those business folks that have millions of extra miles that will just expire, right, and maybe don't realize it. And I know there's a way to donate miles depending on your airline. I know it's a little choppy of a process, but first question is, have you ever been able to get aligned with any of these airlines or people that have extra miles? And is that a way for people to give back, or is it mostly just funds? That's ideal.
So we've looked into it a little bit. We haven't made any significant inroads there yet. I think each airline is a little bit different. So that's not something we can currently take. But I will say that probably the biggest thing that would help, like if people, instead of, if they had miles they wanted to donate, it would really be funds to help buy those tickets.
Yeah.
I know that you can, and I think there's a lot of creative ways that people could do this. If, let's say I have a lot of airline miles and I don't, but maybe I don't have a lot of money. I've heard of people basically, you can transfer miles to someone else.
Yeah.
For a donation. And then that person can, they were going to buy a ticket anyway. They could say, hey, if you donate, I'll give you these miles for these tickets if you donate the cost of what the ticket would be to the Ben Jackson Foundation or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bit of a creative way to do that. And then, people can put that on their social media and say, hey, I have extra miles. If someone wants to take a trip, contact me. I can help you with miles, and you can do this, make a donation to this great cause at the same time.
Yeah. Awesome. So since 2018, have you been able to track how many military personnel you guys have allowed to get tickets? Mm-hmm. Like the cumulative total? I'd love to hear some of the totals here.
So we've given out a total of, so we call them Ticket Home Awards. I think I mentioned that earlier. We've given out a total of 477 as of right now, and we've paid more than 300 of them. So a lot of people still have them available to use in their back pocket.
Yep.
And that represents about $300,000.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. What are your hopes for the future? What do you plan to just keep scaling this, keep fundraising, or curious as to 5 years in your plan?
So my hope for the future is to be, in a broad sense, be able to say yes to more people. If we took the numbers and say, let's say we get 300 applications a month, which some months we get less, some months, I think in June, our applications shut down at 300 once we got to the 10th or 11th of June.
Wow.
So every month is different, but if you were to say 300 applications a month for us to say yes to everybody, that's about $3 million a year that we need in funding. Mm-hmm. So that would be one goal, right? Yeah. Is to get to that point where we can say yes to most people that apply. That's probably the biggest goal that I would have. I think that's definitely out there. The other thing that I would like to be able to do once we kind of satisfy the original mission, one thought I have is, I would say fewer people think about this, but a lot of families, they have people that go to the military. When they graduate from basic training, they can come down and be there for their graduation, whether it's in Texas or California or South Carolina, wherever it is. A lot of people who are in the military, their families can't afford to come down and see that.
Yeah.
And we had personal experience with that, because in the Air Force, when Ben graduated, the tradition was that, they have to, once graduation is over, they have to stand in formation. Then the family goes out to see them. And basically they're not supposed to move until they get, touched on the shoulder. Basically they call it like tapping them out. And there was a lot of people standing there that had no one to tap them out. So, we were like, well, do you know of anybody that we need to go like tap out so they can leave or whatever? And eventually, obviously they get to leave, but it would be cool, I think, someday to have a program where we help young people who are in the military, help their families come down and travel down there to see them, because that's a big moment in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that one's a ways off, because that's a little bit outside of our primary focus, but yeah, that's what I would like to do.
Got it. Wow. Engagement. So people that are listening, what type of engagement are you looking for? Obviously monetary donations to get to that 3 million per year number, to be able to say yes to everyone that's applying. Is that the kind of main type of engagement?
Yeah. I mean, that's one for sure. The other one I would say is just, follow us on social media and share us on social media to other people. A lot of times people will, reshare posts that we have. And then on Facebook, for example, they'll do a birthday fundraiser for us through Facebook. So anybody listening, give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram. Those are the two big platforms that we're on. Share our mission, share some of the stories on both of those platforms. We put out stories of people that we've helped and some photos of their time at home. So share that, tell people about us, and we're, the more people know about us, the more people will be able to help us say yes to more people.
Yeah. And $500 helps somebody stationed in the U.S. see their family. $1,000 helps somebody international come home and see their family. Correct.
Exactly. Yep. And then the other thing I would say too is, a lot of times, depending upon who you work for, your employer will have a program where if you donate money, whether it's through your paycheck withholding or not, they'll provide matching funds.
Yeah.
So that's another great way to help out as well.
Yeah. No, that's a good call out, actually. Yeah. I work for Amazon. I don't think we have it here, but I worked at Dell previously, and we did have donation matching. So absolutely check with your HR and employer if that's possible.
I know for a fact Dell is, we have somebody that gives money through Dell, and Dell does a great job matching that every year. So,
yep. Awesome. All right. Well, Larry, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to bring up or mention before you wrap up?
The only other thing I would say is a couple things. One is that every year we do sell, well, actually we don't sell it, but we have a local vineyard that bottles a wine for us. It's called Bring Me Home. It's a red wine. So if you're interested in that, you can go to baileysrunvineyard.com, and they sell that online and will ship to many states, but there are some states they can't ship to. And then the other thing I would say is that usually once we get into November for Veterans Day, we do a Home for the Holidays campaign. So that's a bit of a time where we try to really boost our donations in the month of November, so we can fund more tickets around November, December, January, typical holiday time frame.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's we covered everything. So folks that are listening, please get engaged. If you have the capacity to donate money, if you have a lot of airline miles, it can convert those. If you have a connection with any airlines that want to partner with an amazing nonprofit foundation, please reach out, and we'll make sure to share all the contact information and URLs and social media links here. But Larry, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and the work you're doing is truly amazing. And thank you for sharing your story. And we're honored to get it out to to another audience.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. I appreciate the platform and being able to tell more people about the young men and women that serve in the military. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Greater Than 0%. To find more episodes or to have your organization featured on the podcast, you can find us at gtzp.org on your preferred streaming or social media platforms. Find your cause with Greater Than 0%.